I need one more box.
And we're live. Welcome back to the Kickback, or if this is your first panel, shalom and welcome. This is You're Funny for a Girl. I'm your host and friendly neighborhood wizard bae, Deborah Winfield. In this panel, these three lovely ladies and I are going to have a discussion about comedy, how you can be a comedian if there is such a thing, the challenges and triumphs of being a woman of color in male-dominated spaces. So you already know it's about to be lit. First, I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves and tell us like how you do funny, stand-up, podcast, everything. Who are you and what do you do?
I think you have to call on us.
You can start with Proma.
Okay, this is my raising my hand.
Perfect.
We're all so polite.
My name is Proma Khosla. I'm in New York. I am a writer and stand-up comic, which I guess they kind of go together. I've been doing stand-up for several years, and it's not like every night. We'll talk about that. It's going to come up in the panel. It's going to be the bulk of what I talk about probably, but I love doing it so much, and it's really fun, and I miss it. I went to an outdoor show yesterday, which was like breathing air again. I also do a lot of writing like funny short films and things like that with my production company, Lion Party Films, which I will plug wherever I can plug things. I also just verbally plugged it. And I also used to do a lot of funny like sketches with my roommate who we did like a Broad City kind of thing called Prom Rad, which is our names like thrown together. And it was just like weird, dumb New York adventures. And it was so much fun. And so we produced a lot of those. And yeah, that's where I guess I am funny online. Sometimes in person.
Funny on the interwebs.
Yeah.
Miss Dara, you're up.
Hello, I'm Dara M. Wilson. We can talk about why the M is important. It has to do with breaking the law. I am a comedian, stand-up, and podcaster, and a solo performer. Solo performance is a one-man show, but ladies are allowed to do it now, so we call it solo performance. I'm based in the Bay Area. I've been out here for about 10 years. I'm sure we'll get into other stuff, but that's me.
And last but not least, Miss Alexandria Love. I love it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alexandria Love. That's my legal name. It's on my birth certificate and everything. I can show it to you guys. I'm a stand-up. I'm from Oakland. I love it here. I've been doing stand-up for, oh God, like Proma said, several years. We don't have to get into numbers. But before the apocalypse started, I was doing stand-up every single night. But now I'm focusing a lot on writing fiction. I really love writing science fiction specifically. I'm like a huge nerd. Dara knows this about me. But I also like to make funny videos. Like I work with this theater in San Francisco called Awesome Theater. And we like to do this thing called Drunkaturgy, which is when with my comedy writing partner, Johnny Walker, Black Label, we get together and we tell stories from history, and it's really fun. So comedy in stand-up and writing and pretty much whatever is available that someone will pay me to do right now is what I'm
doing. Pay me.
Wait, paid?
What was that?
I hope so. We're gonna talk about that too, because like that's a whole thing. So first, and you guys don't have to worry about being muted, just feel free to jump in. I want this to be as like relaxing and informal as possible. Whoever wants to start, what made you interested in pursuing comedy?
It's so cliche, but like deep depression. I hate to say that because I'm not one of these, like I would send depression off packing into the night any second, any chance I get. I'm not like I need to hold on to my sadness for my art kind of people, but that is what spurred it for me. I moved out into the real world after college, and it was really hard. And I was I had a friend who was still in college, and we would write really long emails back and forth to each other about what was going on. And because they were getting long, I was like, these should probably be entertaining. And that was like my first comedy writing. I also just like truly was not a funny person before really horrible things started happening. And then something unlocked in me.
I'm the same way, Dara. I like there's no like story where someone starts doing comedy because everything's going super great in their lives. Like all because like for me, it was because I was like a really weird kid. Like I'm still super weird. I'm just old now. But
I'm still a kid.
Yeah. But I mean, I was like the darkest kid in my class. I talked funny. I look different, and like, I mean, all that stuff is popular now. But like before, it was like I had to find a way to make people like connect with me, because otherwise they would just like not pay attention to me at all. So that was like my way of like connecting with people, is being weird and funny, you know?
That's so interesting that both of you said that, because I was like, that's not me. And then I thought about it for like 10 seconds and I was like, oh shit. I don't know if we're swearing in these. It's
fine. I asked about that too. It's fine. You're fine.
Yeah. I grew up always like definitely like making jokes and like being like the goofy kid in my friend group or like with my parents or whatever. And I didn't really acknowledge this until maybe last year, where I was like, oh, that's like what I want, is to be the funny one. Like I want to be the funny person in the room and like making people laugh. And the high I get from that is incomparable to anything else. Like I don't want to be like the pretty one or the smart one or like the one who's going to change the world. No, I don't want, if you give me a laugh, like that's like the happiest I can be. But I will say, going along with what both of you said, that I had that desire and that in me for a long time. I interned at Comedy Central in 2012 and I loved it. And I watched so much stand up all day and I was like, yeah, like this is so cool and I can't wait to do it. I didn't do it until years later when, as we have discussed, something bad happened. And I was like, oh, I don't have a lot of time and like, I need to do the things I love. I need to pursue it even if it's scary, but also who cares if it's scary? It's so much fun. Like why didn't I do it earlier?
Yeah, I never imagined myself actually, like I wanted to be a stand-up when I was a kid, and then I got older and I was like, I'm not the kind of person that can stand up in front of people. I'll just like be a writer, work behind the scenes. And then I was like, I like attention entirely too much to do that. And now it's like my entire life, you know, it's where like, all my friends are. Yeah,
I tell people, like, I have like a lot of like, you know, friends or acquaintances who still haven't seen me perform, and they're like, oh, I want to see you go up. And I'm like, it's really not going to be fun for you because it's the same as having a conversation with me, but you're not allowed to talk. So great for me, but not for you.
Yeah, I'm really curious. What is it, do you think, that links like comedy and depression? Because in my mind, like I've always, like there are those people, like my cousin, for example, everyone always tells them, oh, you're so funny, like the situational humor thing. He's never gone on to pursue anything in comedy, but a lot of comedians are depressed or are very open about their struggles with depression. We know about comedians that were depressed. First one, of course, that comes to my mind is Robin Williams, Love of My Life. Why is it, do you think, that you chose comedy as your outlet versus I don't know, perhaps therapy or what?
What?
Wow.
I wasn't trying to be shady at all. But like, something about, I mean, I guess the depression and comedy are like complete opposites, perhaps, laughing versus intense sorrow.
That's how you get through it though. Like that's the only way you can get through like the worst times, is like with everything going on right now. Like Dara, I live alone. And so there's like moments where you're just like, oh my God, everything is falling apart. The whole world is crumbling. And like the only thing you can really do to get through it is to laugh it off. You know, that's like,
I take sad naps.
That's how you shake it off.
I live in my bed.
Yeah, I think, well, and like Dara said, I think it does, you know, when you are going through a really difficult time, it does unlock something in you and it kind of frees that up. It unblocks that part, because I do think that as much as comedy and depression, like comedy and sadness should be total opposites, they should be fighting each other. I think they really go hand in hand. Like, you know, we've all probably had that impulse where like something sad or bad happens and somewhere from deep within you, you just want to laugh like your body physically is like, let me offset this pain by doing this thing that makes me feel good. It's like, it's scientific. There's a name for it that
there is a name for it.
No until right now.
That was me as a kid,
unfortunately. Where you want to like eat a baby because it's so cute, like that aggression and response.
It's the aggression, yeah.
Like, it's aggression is in the name somewhere, but it's that kind of thing. And I think that we grow up thinking that there are all these taboos and social etiquette about like being appropriate with pain or with grief, you know, being very nice, very gentle with someone who's going through something, or like speaking correctly about sensitive topics. And then at some point, if you are in that position, you're on the other side of it, you're like, no, but like, this is hilarious. Like, let me tell you all the funny, ironic, weird things about this bad thing that's happening. And once you kind of cross that bridge, you're able to exist in both spaces at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody said. I also think, to me, the link between like being down or being all the way depressed and comedy is resilience. And it's funny that you mentioned, like, instead of going to therapy, I have talked about this with Alex even, like, I have to do both. It can't be one or another. And I actually am pretty resentful of comedians who I see who I'm like, oh, you should have talked to your therapist about this first. Like, you're not ready yet. And I'm paying you, but you should be paying me.
Has any of you tried to make your therapist laugh? Because I've found that I do that a lot.
I exclusively tried to do that.
And she does, and I'm like, please, like, if you basic validation, then why am I even coming here? I'm going to need separate therapy to address the fact that
yeah.
I switched therapists because of that. I'm like, if I'm not going to make you laugh, you don't understand me.
I have had the opposite experience where, like, I'm performing so well in therapy that nobody realizes things are going very, very wrong until they are. And I've had to switch therapists because of that. Because I'm like, you need to be able to see through this charade. This is the whole thing that we're working on here, is seeing through the mask. But like I was happy that you brought up therapy, because to me, and I just had this experience, like, doing comedy is really personal a lot of times. That is how I know that I have actually processed traumas or whatever the thing is. Like, I remembered a story yesterday that I won't tell here because I'm going to use it for something, but it is a story that is surrounded with a lot of really painful memories. But the story kind of came out by itself because it's years later now. And I finally, at this moment, I'm like, oh, but in retrospect, that shit was hilarious. Like, it took a long time to get there. But now that I am, it's like, okay, now it turns into, how do I use it? Because my other, like, a few guiding life philosophies, one of which is, like, if you don't make a story out of it, if you don't use it for some creative endeavor, like the things that cause pain in your life, then your life is just sad. And that to me is like an intolerable thought. Yeah.
Well, we are in the year of the Rona. People are stressed.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing? If it's not, creating comedy, what are you all doing to stay uplifted, happy? Do you have any movie recommendations, book recommendations?
Are people happy?
I got some sun yesterday, so like I have a pretty good support network. People pulling me out. Like I said, I live in my bed, and so I'm getting better. But yeah, what are you guys doing?
I mean, I'm really thankful for Dara and the other Black girls that we kind of connect with. And like, the thing about comedians is that there is no after comedy. There is no thing that we do outside of this. Like, everything we do is in service of the craft, And so it's nice to have, I did it in quotations, but like, it's actually genuine. And so that's why it's nice to like be in this community, that this is what gets me up in the morning, is knowing that I got to do this with and for my girls,
Yeah, I've been trying to create stuff, it was like, I think 2 to 3 months of just absolutely nothing and like staring into the void, watching a lot of movies and TV and streaming. And then I hit like a wall even with that. I was in a TV slump, which is very rare for me. But then and I also, whenever I can't write anything, I go back to the pilot I wrote in 2015. And so that that has been through like roughly 20 versions now. But I did a version that I really like now. I'm like, okay, this is like the beginning of the next stage of it. And that kind of opened me up to like do other stuff. I randomly, only maybe in the past month, started like jotting down jokes again and like working on other scripted things. So hopefully something will come of that. But still just like dicking around in daily life is the best way to still be funny. Like I'm still like saying dumb things to my roommate and like friends if I see them. So that is helping.
Yeah, I have a very, very, as I'm sure we all do, I have a very demanding 9 to 5. And so I wasn't like, once everything locked down, I wasn't really doing a lot of comedy, but I didn't miss it. I'm like a bad comedian for saying that, but I didn't miss it because I was as busy as I have ever been in my life. Like at this time where a lot of people are finding themselves with more free time, I found myself with much, much less. And yeah, so that there was a dearth there, I guess, but I wasn't really feeling it. Now, in the group of Black lady comedians that Alex talked about has really like fired me back up to write again, which has been really nice. Like I feel like I wasn't even having comedic thoughts, which is odd to me. Like my brain is the most entertaining part of my existence. Like my brain tells itself jokes all the time, and I really like that. And I didn't have that, so I'm glad to get that back. And then I became a plant daddy like everybody else because I make sourdough bread. So.
Oh, you're not making bread?
Well, I tried, and it's not for me.
But I'm on a crafty bunch.
I just made some delicious buns yesterday, so if you want, I can give you the recipe. You can try it.
Other things. The sourdough starter is very scary to me.
I went straight to cake. I was like, why are we even pretending?
I don't eat dessert. What'd you say, Alex?
I just said we should cut out the middleman here. Just pile sugar into my face. You know what I mean? Like I just, I know what this
is. So, sort of segueing from Dara had mentioned her good old 9 to 5, 9 to 7, 24/7. You know, what are you guys doing? Is this sort of like a professional hobby, or is this your full-time career? I'm an actor. I'm gonna say it whether I'm doing one show or if I'm doing a one show a year, or if I'm doing like 20 shows a year. I'm an actor, full stop. I may also have that 9 to 5, but I'm an actor. Do you guys consider yourselves comedians all the way through? Is this just something that you do as a way of expression? Because there are artists that are like that as well. Are you pursuing this for the long haul?
Well, I think you hit it on the head completely, which is that whether you do it once a year or every night, like it's still there. And that took me a long time to just be like, I'm a comic, and to just say that with what I can only describe as white male confidence, which I have not achieved because I'm still kind of like, I've gone to so many mics and I'll like talk to the host or the producer after, and I'm trying to get on, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm kind of like, I sometimes like part-time. It's not every day, but it's funny. And I really, maybe again in the past year was like, hi, like I'm Proma, I'm a comic, I would love to get on your show. I'm like shaking, every one of my organs is like vibrating, and it's or whatever. But I somehow hopefully have gotten through that interaction. I do have a 9 to 5 as an entertainment reporter, which is really fun because I love what I'm doing, and I can watch movies and TV and watch other funny people and be really inspired by it. And I can also like try to be funny in my writing online, which is a different muscle than doing it verbally or doing it in a scripted video or something. But yeah, like owning it 24/7 is a big thing. And also like the thing to me that matters the most is like, I'm a comic because I love it so much. Like every time I go up on stage, I like end up writing myself a note afterwards. It's like, remember how good this feels. Like, it feels so amazing. I will get nervous up until the moment I get up on stage. And as soon as I'm up there, I'm like, this is fine. And this is fun. And this is easy. And as long as it continues to give me that feeling, like, I'm going to keep trying to do it, and I'm going to consider myself a comic, because that feeling is really rare, and it's weird to be still that I don't get to do it every night, because that's like, nothing makes me feel that way. It's weird.
I'm worried, based on what you said, that I might be a white man, because I've always had confidence in myself about comedy. Like, after the first open mic, I was like, oh yeah, I'm a comic. Like, get out of my
I definitely have like in my head, like I'll go to a mic and be like, you're not funny, you're not funny, you're not funny.
I still do that.
But outwardly, I'm so just like, oh.
That's a really strong motivator. That's how I got into solo performance, was by watching a solo show and being like, oh, please, I can do this. Is this what it is? I can do this.
That is important.
I also thought the person was being like irresponsible in the space that she was holding as a Black woman, which is something I care about too. So it's like, I have to get out there and put out my message because I'm the only one who can, or whatever. But
how do you feel I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in terms of like how I identify, I spent a lot of time hemming and hawing too, especially because I was doing comedy things that were not stand-up for a long time. It does feel a lot easier since I started doing stand-up to say like, I'm a comic, and just move on with my life, as opposed to trying to convince people like, it's a solo show, it's in a black box theater, but it's still like comedy. And they're like, comedy, whatever. So I feel a lot more comfortable being in that world now. My 9 to 5, I'm a marketer, and it's like a full-blown career. I don't mean to talk about it like it's a disease, but it just happened to me, and it was an accident, and I don't know how, but I don't think like, it's just so weird to be compelled to climb, and like gun for, like, I just got promoted, gunning for a promotion for something that like I don't want to do.
No, that's actually real. One day, is this something that you'd like to do solely one day? Like, do you ever see that happen? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Because at 9 to 5, we have to have a home. We have to have food.
Yeah. I imagine there's still like skills that you'll have to use. Like, there's like maybe consulting, or there's just like a different way of going about it. So maybe it isn't a 9 to 5 or a 9 to 9 or whatever it ends up being. But it's really weird. It's weird to feel like I need to get what I deserve in my 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we lost one.
She'll be back.
She'll be back. They always come back. They always come back.
Feeling like, like I said, gunning for promotions, like gunning for acknowledgement and recognition, because you deserve it. And at the same time being like, ugh, and now, okay, here I am even deeper into this accidental career. So
that's fine.
Yeah, that's how I feel sometimes. Like I after grad school, I came back. Hold on, I'm gonna turn my sound off because I'm echoing here. But after grad school, I kind of came back and I was just like, okay, I want to be a comedian full time, full stop. But also, I really like eating and having a place to live. But also, I can't do that thing where I just do something for the sake of it. I can't do something because it's a hobby. Otherwise, it's like, why? What's the point? Why am I doing this? And so, like, for everything that I do, I have to have an end game. I have to have a goal, And so there was a point where I was like, oh, comedy is just like a thing that I do to help me build my resume so that I'm better at my day job. I work in publishing. I work as a writer for their blogs, which is like so much fun. And I love getting to write about all the social justice stuff that nobody wants to hear me talk about in stand-up.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
But it's good because like those two things intersect a lot, and I get to be funny at work, and then I get to do social justice stuff and stand-up sometimes. But once I realized that stand-up was the thing that I want to do, I feel like it's unfair for me to deprive myself of a thing that I worked very, very hard to get to. But when there's people around me, especially white men, who are not as talented and not as ambitious, it felt unfair for me to pretend like this was something I wanted to do as like a hobby when it's like my whole life. you know?
Yeah, I definitely identify with that. I also I'm a person who people will say like, "Oh, Dara, you're just good at everything." I'm like, "No, I just do what I'm good at." Hey, I'm not good at everything. I just don't show up and fail at stuff. So I the first time I did stand up, first of all, I've been acting since I was 5, so it wasn't my first time performing, and it wasn't my first time doing comedy because I was doing all this other kind of performance work, and I had been listening to improv and stand up 3 or 4 hours a day every day for many, many years. I had basically put myself through comedy college and correspondence courses. So by the time I got up on stage, it was like, oh yeah, I know how to do this. And it didn't feel like a surprise. So maybe I should have had the confidence that Alex had, because I was definitely prepared. Definitely prepared.
Cool. So
I'm back. I'm alive.
Hey.
Welcome back. We missed you. Tried not to cry. It was a little tough because we've made such a strong connection already. But
I have really terrible Wi-Fi all the time, but it has not given out during a single live stream throughout the past 6 months. So
listen, technology never loved Wizard Team. You know this. The Black Girls Creates Wizard Team. There's something. Always something happens. It's fine. But we're still trucking on, moving along.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you guys, so of course, this is about being a lady in comedy. There are probably lots of women out there listening to us now. Do you have any advice on how you can start a career? Any advice for the youths, the not so youths, in comedy? What were some of the things that you did to start? Did you just grab a mic from a white man, start riffing?
I think I would have thrown up if I tried. But I love Alexandria talking about having that confidence, because that's really key. But to build it up, what I did was I knew internally I was I'm funny and I can do this, and I just couldn't get that out into the world. I performed. I would say my advice is to perform at what will be a safe space. So my first time I went up and did anything close to my current stand-up, basically the first time I went up and just spoke into a mic and tried to be funny, was at a convention, was at GeekyCon in 2015, and it was my friend's open mic that she was hosting. I knew a lot of people in the audience, so I was you're gonna laugh because you have to, because otherwise I won't like you afterward. But it went well. I was okay, that was comfortable. I personally did not freak out and have some sort of unforeseen panic about being on stage. I was surrounded by people who would have totally understood if that did happen, and when it didn't, they also happened to enjoy my set. So that was a really fun place to test it out, and then gave me confidence to move forward and move into maybe less open spaces.
I talked a little bit about this earlier. By the way, Proma, if you're performing at stuff like GeekCon, let's be friends, because I
have very niche jokes that are, when I take them to clubs and stuff, I'm one person's gonna laugh. But
I know, that's why I performed at Comic-Con a couple times, and every single time I was there's only jokes that I can tell only here that nobody else. They're gonna who cares about who is Captain America? But my original point, which is now lost on me. Oh yes, I wish that if I could go back and tell myself when I was 20, when I started doing stand-up, it would be, I used to perform for other people. I used to be okay, this is what I think other people want to hear. And it was that little girl that I told you about earlier, that was very insecure and cared so much about what other people thought. And I was once I gave that up and just started writing okay, what's funny to me? What's a joke that only I can write? That like Dara says, my brain tells myself jokes all the time. What's in here that's fucked up, but it's making me laugh? If I can find a way to connect with people through that, instead of just pretending I'm not a weirdo and lying to them, I think that if I could give advice to any Black girl doing stand-up, it would be stay away from the white men in the scene, but also don't perform for other people. Just do what's funny for you, and the funny will come, I promise.
That own self be true.
I I avoided, like I was running away from stand-up. Basically, there was a bunch of stand-ups like in my life who were like, you're gonna do stand-up. And I was like, never, I will never do it. Because I didn't, all I could imagine was like doing a mic or something, like just doing a show for an audience that just didn't give a shit about what I was saying. And like setting myself, like life is pain. I'm not gonna seek out more pain. Like, why would I do that? What was helpful to me, like y'all have said, is finding spaces that were more like where my audience was. What I was looking at was like, yeah, those people would not think that I'm funny. And it is not helpful to get that kind of feedback from people. Like, you're not going to be on board with me no matter what. Just off top, looking at me, you're not on board. So that's not like, it's not helpful for me, for my art, for my craft, whatever. I got pulled into it by a friend of mine who runs a sketch group called Nice Tan. She asked me to open their show, and I think she knew that I had never done stand-up before, although I don't know why she would let me open her very important show if that was the case. So, but either way, I did, like, my first thing was like a 10-minute spot opening the show, and it went really well. And because that sketch group is like queer and people of color and a lot of women, like it attracted an audience that I knew was going to be my people. And what I've tried to do is continue to kind of cultivate those kinds of spaces. So like I have a show that I co-produce with another comic named Jackie Kalia that's called Amazonians. Because the thing that I love comedy. I consume comedy all the time. And I'm always like with my shoulders at my ears, like, when is the racist thing going to come in? When are you going to say something sexist? When is it going to be fat phobic? When is it going to be queer phobic? Like, just all kinds of bigotry that comes in and like kind of ruins it for you, deflates it for you. And I wanted to create a space where there was no room for any of that. So it's just like, relax and see a funny show. And you don't have to trade on quality. And it's not, I mean, it's hard to book because there's a whole bunch of really funny women who we have to choose from. But that has been my saving grace. Like, even when I'm not getting up regularly at other people's shows, like, we have that dedicated space.
That's wonderful. Like, so how, jumping off of that, how do you ladies develop your career or create those safe spaces or find those opportunities? Did you move to another city, like a big area? I'm not from New York. I currently live in New York City. I'm from North Carolina. But now I live in New York City in pursuit of acting. Might be moving to Atlanta because everything's a hellhole, including Atlanta, but like at least there's more work there. There's more work there. People are maybe wisely, unwisely starting up filming. Anyways, it's not about me, it's about y'all.
A hellhole with cheaper rent. So there's that.
And cheaper rent. Number one, cheaper rent.
Yeah.
Like this, it's a nice apartment.
Girl, don't get me started.
But I'm sorry. This is a fat suit. This is a fat suit. This ain't me.
Yeah, I mean, I did the same. I grew up in Michigan, and then I was like, I gotta get out. Just in general, I'm very hard on Michigan. But then, since I left, I developed a fondness for it. That is neither here nor there. But yeah, I was like, it's when I interned at Comedy Central in New York in college, and I was like, all right, like, gotta get back. I also knew that I wanted to work in entertainment, and that it was going to be New York or LA. New York was more appealing to me personally, and also closer to home and to a lot of like friends and family. That was part of it, I think. And just finding the shows, I don't think it was unavailable maybe early on when I moved here, but I started seeing over the years more and more like South Asian specific comedy shows popping up, or like female specific, or people of color. And I was like, oh, that seems way more interesting to me than just going to some random pub open mic where most of the lineup is like cishet white dudes who have the same like 5 joke topics. Like I'm over that. Like I wanted to see more people like me. And then also in specials, like there started being so many more taped specials or half hours, hour specials. Netflix got super into it. And I think a big thing for me was there were already South Asian comics, but Homecoming King by Hassan Minhaj.
That was a great special. I loved it.
It's a great cycle, and it's not really explicitly stand up. I actually get like heated when people are like, he had a great like comedy set. I'm like, this is, I mean,
he's got a solo backgrounds. Yeah.
He incubated it like at the Moth, so it's very much storytelling, but it was funny, and that's when I was like, this kind of seems more in line with what I want to do, because again, also comedy at that time, because I saw it live and he was doing it.
Yes, that was my question.
It was live. Wow.
I saw it live in like Cherry Lane downtown, which was like 100 people in the theater. And when I went, it wasn't even sold out. So like whoever was like in charge of the house that night, they were like, "Do you want to come sit in the front and move me and my friends to the literal front row?" And Hudson was like, "The comedy right here the whole night." Definitely right now. Comedy. It was so good. But yeah, so that was like a revelatory thing where I was like, oh, until now I thought stand-up was very traditional, very like set up punchline, the way that a lot of like classic comics have done it. And that freed up a little bit too. What are we talking about? I lost my train of
thought. How? And that's fine. I love it. It was beautiful. That's the story of my life. Like I love stories, rambling and just going off on so many tangents.
See, this is what I am Hassan, because I'm gesticulating and I'm rambling. But yeah, finding not only finding the shows that had that and had more voices like that, I was like, oh, I can see if like I loved Hassan's Hour, like now I can go to like this South Asian specific comedy show that they're doing for like Indian Independence Day, and they have like 8 South Asian comics. We're all going to talk about different things. Like that's so fun, and just like finding more and more, because that was like, if anyone's going to accidentally have the same material as me, it's probably going to be people like me, but they're also going to have other great material that I'm going to love because I can relate to it. So I don't have any problem finding those spaces specifically. It's really a lot of like randomly online on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, finding groups and things that you're interested in, and then randomly through that they'll pop up that like there's an event, a show, an artist you've never heard of.
How did you get with Comedy Central?
That was just, oh my God, that was just blind luck. Like I applied through the Viacom internship program and somehow got in. And it was good. Yeah. It was a very chill internship. I didn't do much, but because it was with the stand-up department, the digital team, I just watched stand-up all day. And I was like, this is work.
Dream job.
Yeah. I watched everything. They had so many clips on their website. I was watching like Sandra Bernhard clips from the 80s that I didn't know existed.
On what Proma was saying, as far as like finding your people, finding your tribe, finding your community, it's really important. But sometimes if you look like us, that community, you might not be able to find that. You might have to create it. You might have to be a magnet that draws everybody in. There was a point a couple years ago where I felt like open mics in the comedy scene, you have to do them. You have to do them. There's no other place to practice. But open mics in comedy scenes, even in big cities like Oakland and San Francisco, they felt very homogenous, mostly cis white dudes, and it doesn't feel always like the most inclusive place to be. Like Dara says, like you're waiting for someone to say something homophobic or fatphobic or something that makes you feel like I'm not supposed to be here and nobody wants me here. So what I did, I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna make my own open mic. And so me and my friend Kelly Anakin, we got together and we were just like, we're going to make an open mic called Crush. And it's going to be for women identifying individuals, non-binary. We love our NB babies. And it was where, and you know what? It kind of blew up in our faces because we would see people who their first time doing stand-up, who were so talented. And I'm like, get out. You don't get to do it right away. You have to struggle with the white dudes like the rest of us. There's people that it's like, oh, I wanted to do this my entire life, but I didn't have the opportunity because I was so scared. But they're just in the rooms fucking writing. They're just writing all these amazing jokes and then getting better. And then by the time that Crush came along, like there was this amazing comic named Dilla Bakiver. I'm sure you guys are going to hear her name. The first time I saw her, she's like, this is my first time doing stand-up, and she got up and crushed. I was just like, I need she has to go. Like
you can't come back no more. She's taken. Taken.
So like if I said to say, if you can't find your tribe exists. You just have to like kind of wrangle those broads and bring them in and have everybody be in the same room, and then that's where I think the magic happens. That's where people like me and Dara meet, and that's when we become friends and become better at comedy ultimately.
Yeah. Dylan said,
don't get me started.
she came to us at Amazonians and was like, oh, like, this is the show that I like loved, and this made me want to do stand-up comedy. And she was like, so I don't know, like, maybe if you have a spot, like, could it be on the show? And we looked at her stuff, we were like, why? Amazonians hasn't been around long enough for you to be this good and have gotten your inspiration from Amazonians. Like, at that point, it was like, that was 3 months ago. What is happening? She's amazing.
Oh.
My advice is to be helpful, and not to be helpful with any specific end goal in mind. Like, the reason Carla from Nice Tan put me on that first show was because I was helping them with a read through of the show itself, giving them some notes and feedback on their sketches. That happened because she had done my show. I did a live recording of a web series that I had at the time in Sketchfest. Like, people are just kind of like trading expertise in friend circles and acquaintance circles between each other. And to me, that I feel that's the most genuine way to embed yourself in the kind of communities that y'all have been talking about. I will also say I've certainly benefited from, while Alex was wading through the white dudes, I was in my safe solo space where it's a black box and nobody's gonna yell at me, and working on my storytelling and stuff that way. And now I get to benefit from a lot of the communities that do exist, like, unfortunately, on Facebook. But there are some really helpful groups where you can have a question, go in and get the answer. And it's people who are trying to do comedy professionally. So that's been really helpful for me. I'm happy to not be a trailblazer.
Everyone's like, okay, well, gotta follow. But you are in your own right. Like, there's no specific way to like start. That's why the three of you are here right now, giving your own individual experiences and testimonials, hallelujah, about how you came to where you are now. It's fine. You're perfect. You're lovely. We appreciate you.
Yeah, I think it also goes back to what we mentioned earlier, though, about just like owning it. Because the other part is like, if you don't put that out into the world that like, hey, I'm funny, I'm a comic, I'm a writer, I'm a performer, while you're all like not doing it enough visibly, no one's gonna know. No one's gonna be like, hey, I'm curating a show and I would love to see if you're interested in hosting or being any part of it if you have simply not declared that is your intention. So
that's for sure true. There's a club in a lot of places, but one in San Francisco called The Punchline. And I performed on that stage, and it's like a big deal to perform on that stage. And I kind of got around the process that's usually there because there was a comedy storytelling show happening through Sketchfest that somebody dropped and they needed another person. And somebody was like, oh, Dara does storytelling. I think she'll get on stage and talk about weird sex things. And that is true. So you have to put out there that you are a storyteller who's willing to talk about weird sex things, if that's who you are.
I will do that. I'm going to work on that now. Thank you. Write it down.
The opportunity will find you.
Yeah. Now, I did want to follow back on something you had mentioned earlier, Dara. You said that there was a woman, you had gone to a comedy show, there was a woman who was using her platform inappropriately. And so I just wanted to touch on that for a second and see, like, how does being a Black woman, a human, but specifically a Black woman of color, how does that influence your comedy? Does it change it at all? Like, because, you know, we talked about the cis-het white man with the same 5 jokes. What's appropriate, quote unquote, I suppose, for a Black woman to go on and speak about, and what's not appropriate? If you don't want to talk about that situation because it's triggering, you don't have to.
This is fine.
How to use your platform.
This was a solo show that I was watching where it was a Black woman and there were people in the audience, mostly white people. Mm-hmm. And many of them said things like, this is like my 2nd or 3rd time watching the show. It's so wonderful. And when white people like things Black people do too much, it's suspect. So it's like, what's going on here? Why do you like this so much? Why are all these, like, this in the heart of San Francisco, all these Berkeley whites are coming to the theater en masse? And when I saw the show, I realized what it was because it was a show that denigrated Black men, but it was from the point of view of a Black woman. And so it gives you like a racism pass to still feel progressive for celebrating a Black woman, but getting out the nasty stuff that you feel about Black men. I thought, like I said, that was really irresponsible. And I also thought that she wasn't doing it on purpose, which to me is the most irresponsible, because she hadn't done enough work in herself to know that that is the message that she was putting out there. I still wouldn't have liked it, but if there had been some intentionality there, I think it would have been better. But it was just careless and really damaging. So, I mean, my platforms aren't the largest, but I do think responsibility is a part of it to me. Like I want to tell the truth for sure. But I want to do it in a way that is not inadvertently playing into systems or lines of thinking that I don't agree with. And to me, like maybe it's a little bit more challenging, but also when you're not being responsible, you end up just doing really hacky stuff. So
yeah, that's really true. And there's like this weird duality with being a female performer, especially a female performer of color, or a performer from any marginalized community, is that you become the representative of whatever groups you're in. Like if I go up on stage, I'm the representative of every Black woman in the room somehow, which I would feel bad if it was me. I'd be like, she doesn't, she's weird. She doesn't talk for me. But despite the fact that like that is like a responsibility that's put on us, we don't necessarily accept it, but it's a responsibility that's like bestowed upon our heads that we have to kind of deal with. And so like there's ways that we can fight back with that, but at the same time we do have to be mindful, no matter what we do, that is how we're being presented, that's who we're representing, and it's like a big responsibility. And so yeah, you have to be really intentional with the things that you do. There's jokes that I used to tell when I thought like, oh, this isn't my responsibility. I'm not your role model. I'm not your Britney Spears in 2000. I'm my own girl. But then I realized like I'm not. I perform for myself and I love it, but it's bigger than me now, And I understand that the standards are higher for Black women. People always expect us to be perfect, and there's going to be mistakes that happen. I still make missteps. I'm sure I made 50 during this call just now. But I feel like stepping away from like seeing it as a responsibility and seeing it as an opportunity. This is how I present myself in the world, and this is how I want people to see me. And maybe it adds a little bit more humanity to other people that look like me, or whatever marginalized community that you're in.
Right. Well, I have one last question before I open it up to the audience. So who were some of your biggest influences in comedy? Just thinking recently, we talk about sadness and depression already, but like I know Bernie Mac passed away, or the anniversary of his passing was like the 9th of August or the 6th of August. And I know I really enjoyed his comedy. He cussed a lot. He was very rude and disrespectful, but I love him. Who are some of your comedic influences, and have they influenced your comedy? Yeah. Who are your faves, and who are some of the comedians that have influenced you?
Bernie Mac, that was number one. It sounds like I'm kidding, but like the first time I saw that set, the one where he wore his face on his pants, yes. I looked over to my mom and my dad, and I was like, I want to be a stand-up comedian. And they were like, no, you want to be a lawyer. And I was like, duh, of course, you're totally right. So we were all wrong. But then when I got into high school, I started watching The Daily Show. And that was like the turning point for everything. I was like, oh, comedy's like important. Like if this is how people like decimate information, like this is how people learn about the world, And so between like Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert, I was like, oh, this is just like the thing that like can really change the world. I don't do that now, but like that's what like my mindset was. And so when I first started actually doing stand-up, the people that I really watched were John Mulaney, and Jen Kirkman, who is amazing. And I really felt like a really deep kinship with Wanda Sykes as being a queer Black woman. I get this, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's me.
Go. Well, I mentioned Hudson earlier, which is like that specific show was really a big deal for me. John Mulaney, obviously the only good white man in the world, incredible.
Right?
I have not watched a lot of specials multiple times. I have watched his like on a loop. He's so good. But also before that, like thinking about beyond stand-up, because there were so many, like I watched so many things now that have blurred together. I just in general have learned that like, yeah, I prefer to watch women performing comedy, people of color performing comedy. It's just going to be more fun for me. And that's something I'm allowed to say. You can't say the reverse. You can't be like, I only like watching white men perform. That's wrong. However, I get to be right about this. Beyond stand-up, like a lot of things that I watched that were like online video gave me such excitement about like being weird and knowing that was okay and really, really funny to people. Like I watched Britannic. Do you guys know Brian McElhaney and Nick Kocher? They wrote for a few television shows. They wrote for SNL for a little bit, but they have a YouTube channel of just like crazy, weird sketches that are extremely funny if they hit your exact sense of humor. And I watched all of their sketches, like probably, I think my Comedy Central summer as well, because they were in New York and I went to see them perform a couple times and they were so funny. And it's very, very bizarre. And I can see where for some people it's just like not funny at all, but it spoke to me. And then I realized also that like, if you make that one person laugh super hard, even if the rest of the room is silent, that counts as a laugh. And that's a very gratifying laugh on par with like everyone in the room kind of like tittering a little bit. Like that one snort. That is the thing that I love, is to know that like it was super funny for one person. And similarly, with online video, Star Kid, who did like a Harry Potter musical and all of these shows, they have a very, again, like they're really good and funny and silly, but if you have seen their shows a lot, or like as I have like watched a Harry Potter musical many times and memorized it, like there's some strange specificity that is so funny. If it rings true, if it strikes that exact chord with you, which it did with me, and then that very much has informed my scripted comedy and sketches and performance, where I'm like, no, I want to do this one weird thing like just for us. And or for that one person who's going to get it. And like, hey, this is a deep cut reference to some other video that no one's going to understand, but I want to.
I love deep cuts.
But you got it. But you got it. Ms. Dara?
Early on, I would say like Anna Devere Smith and John Leguizamo. I didn't even think of solo as a thing I could do, but I was just absolutely fascinated and it was like, oh, like just very wistful about that style of art. Mike Birbiglia, later on, I think he has a couple of specials, but there's one called My Girlfriend's Boyfriend that is phenomenal. And so, yeah, that I have one time in my life someone complimented me and said like, oh, you're like Mike Birbiglia, but funnier. And I have never barked a laugh in somebody's face. I was like, you're so wrong. I was just like, wow, how does it feel to be 100% incorrect? So I'm a big Mulaney, of course, all those Georgetown kids. And lately, like most of the comedy stuff that I listen to now is improv. There's a group out of UCB in LA called White Women with Carl Tart, Zeke Nicholson, Ify Wadaway, some other folks. I'm really big fans of theirs. And Carl, he knows this, I tell him all the time, like one of the funniest human beings walking on the face of the planet. And also I have a nomination for maybe the second and only other non-problematic white man, and his name is Paul F. Tompkins.
Oh,
I love everything he does.
You have this one bit. Sorry, I hate to do the I must go into a joke word for word. He has this thing from a few years ago, I think, where he's talking about working at Betamax Video. where he says the phrase like, "We will nap concurrently." And it made me laugh so hard that I'm still thinking about it to this day. Why? Word choice? Like, I think that's a thing that he and Mulaney have in common, is they're very specific about exactly which word to use to phrase a joke.
Yeah, if you're unfamiliar with him, he's Mr. Peanut Butter on BoJack Horseman. He has a bit about peanut brittle that is one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my whole life. So I highly recommend.
Peanut brittle, got it. Paula Thompson, we will nap concurrently.
He was sleeping at work. I skipped the important.
It's fine. Google knows. I'll find it. So we do have a question that's going to be highlighted from Miss Alex.
Ooh, what are your methods for building and owning that confidence? Asking for me, LOL. You're cute.
This is the real fake it till you make it.
Oh my God.
But Alex said she has confidence, so why?
Yeah.
Alex, we can help you. You're there.
That sounds so mean. You should be confident, but lots of people who should be confident are not. How come you are?
Yes. Oh my God. Okay, listen. It was because when I first started out doing stand-up, I was not confident at all, and I used to really show it on stage. And then white women would come up to me after my set, and they would berate me with compliments, and something about that really bothered me. Like, it felt like, oh, I don't really need your validation. I'm just talking about my experiences on stage. But then I got so it was like I was so averse to it. I was just like, I can't have people coming up to me and telling me that I'm pretty and that I'm funny, because it just makes me feel like I'm pitiful, you know? And so I went up there and I was just like, girl, I'm so fine. Like, you can't tell me shit. Like, I just went up there and I did fake it for years, until there was a point last year where I started talking like that outside of my set. And I was like, oh, I actually do think that I'm hot and hilarious now. What happened?
Great, so it works.
Like, I was so rejecting of other people telling me that I was great, that I was just like, I need to just pretend like I'm great. And then eventually one day I was like, I don't remember ever thinking that I wasn't great. I've always been awesome, you know?
That's so funny, because I try to get the same outcome, but in a different way, where I just literally say in my set, please don't talk to me after this.
I did too, Dara. I'm like, don't talk to me after the show. I'm not the same person.
It's tiresome. It is hard being on stage for a long time too. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely also, you build some confidence from like watching other people and having what we've all described, and that feeling of like, oh, but I'm funnier than you. Even if like, I feel like I've definitely gone to shows where I'm like very quiet and polite, and then until I go on, and then go and I kill it and then leave, and that feels great.
Just disappear in the night.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I have to go be with
yeah.
Like,
I definitely feel more confident on stage than I do like in a green room or backstage or whatever with like comedians that I don't know.
Yeah.
With the other comedians, I'm like, and then
I feel like a child, literal child. I also look very young for my age all the time. Like, I look like a teenager, and then I go into the green room and I'm like, hello, all the adults are here.
Well, ladies, this has been real. This has been fun. This has been real fun, but it's about that time. So we've got maybe 1 minute left. I want to use this time for you all to plug. Where can people find you? Your socials, your websites, what you're doing. I know you said it in the beginning, but you know, some people might have slid in the middle. Where can we find you? Asking for a friend.
I have a new website, thanks to the editorial eye of my many Black female compatriots, such as Dara. It's AlexandriaComedy.com. I finally got rid of all the dog pictures. It's no longer a dog adoption website.
I'm going to miss the dogs, though.
Me too. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at RiaLoveFTW, RIALOVEFTW. Yeah, you guys are awesome. I love this.
Hell yeah.
Slap that. My screen name, I'm 1,000 years old. It's right there.
That was telling.
Yeah, hit me up on AIM at Dara M. Wilson. The M is because there's a Dara Wilson who went to jail for beating her kids.
Thank you. I was going to say, you did tell us you were going to let us know about the M later.
Thank
you. That came full circle in a way I was not expecting.
It's a callback. I did it.
Yeah,
punchline. Yes, set up.
And I'm Proma What Up on everything. PROMAWHATUP. I didn't spell what up in any hip way. It's also in the comments. Thank you, Diana. And I have a website too, promakhosla.com. I think it's mostly up to date, so that's cool. Have some photos and stuff. And Lion Party Films is my production company, which is, if you find me on social or on my website, I link out to everything all the time. And I hope to see you there.
Good. And you guys can find me on the Twitters at DLWinfie, DLWINFIE. You can also find me on Instagram, DLWinfie. I'll be there. Or maybe I'm not. I tend to be kind of like a ghost. It's the Rona time. It's fine. Well, thank you again, ladies. This has been lovely. Stay safe. Wear your masks.
Oh, hell yeah.
Bye. Thank you so much.